So the Knicks' biggest secret hater, Mark Cuban, is still dirty Macking from the grave even after selling his NBA team. The whole Jalen Brunson exit from Dallas has left a sour taste in Cuban's mouth, and it really stems from the Porzingis trade with the Knicks, and Cuban wasn't happy with the way Porzingis arrived in Dallas, not necessarily being at a good timetable within his rehab. He's previously made comments about KP's condition when his medical staff first took a look at him. And throughout this whole Steve Ballmer saga with the cap circumvention, Mark Cuban has made himself very available as he sat down for an hour-long discussion with Pablo Torre, but come to find out their conversation was a lot longer as they spoke for 3 hours.
So you should know here that I talked to Mark Cuban for 3 hours. A meandering and often circular, 2 hours and about 45 minutes, actually. Entirely about this subject, which is both incredible and enjoyable, almost perversely, but also undoubtedly my fault as the interviewer. And so this conversation, to be very clear, as all our conversations are, has been cut down for length and clarity. Because at one point, in fact, Mark Cuban and I were so immersed in said conversation that his phone battery died mid-sentence and his connection completely dropped out, which made us worried for obvious reasons.
Now that's interesting. A 3-hour conversation about cap circumvention. And it would be hard to believe that he didn't mention Jalen Brunson in the Knicks not once. But as soon as Pablo Torre dropped this interview, he proceeded to go to another media outlet and hinted that the Knicks signing of Jalen Brunson could be his next story. The dirty Macking from Mark Cuban continues.
Is there something in there with Jalen Brunson?
Well, look, how he arrived at the Knicks, this is where I will have to defer to the reporting I may or may not do on this. Certainly was interesting, right? Like, okay, that's a pretty good deal for the Knicks. Has some, whatever. Anyway, I don't want to get ahead of myself in terms of
That's
that.
a tease, though. That's a tease.
It's a bit of a tease.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm showing a little ankle with you. I always show a little bit more ankle than I should with you.
Now, this is interesting because Mark Cuban has shown up in Jalen Brunson's podcast and put a poker face, acting like everything was all good when talking about his transition into joining the Knicks. This interview happened in the summer of 2024, and ironically, a few months later in October 2024, come to find out, the NBA had finally released paperwork showing that Mark Cuban had filed tampering charges against the Knicks, and they ended up losing a 2025 second-round pick. Once again, Mark Cuban dirty Macking from the grave, but right here, pay attention to a few months earlier before we found out that he filed these charges, how he held up a nice poker face when talking about the situation with Jalen Brunson.
And then I think Mark and I, like we were on separate podcasts. Like he said some stuff, I said some stuff, all right, and then we decided to actually have a conversation together, work stuff out, and then boom, here we are. So
yeah, I mean, it is what it is. No hard feelings, behind both of us. I don't hold grudges or anything. There's no grudge to hold, right? JB and I have always gotten along, right? I don't think, and so I'm happy for him. It didn't work out the way I thought it would. I mean, you guys made the conference finals, so I think it worked out pretty well.
No, it didn't work out for Mark Cuban pretty well. Come on, JB, you know that. Because the play was he was leveraging that no one had the cap space to give you the deal that you wanted. You see, the Knicks recently signed a number of players. They had the Derrick Rose contract. They had the Nerlens Noel contract. Same thing for Alec Burks. But in that 2021 draft, I believe it was that year, this is where Leon Rose should get a lot of credit. The fact that he moved those contracts away with Detroit, Charlotte, and I believe the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Knicks have great relationship with those teams, but they moved those contracts around. And when they freed up that money, that's when Mark Cuban realized he fucked up and he was going to lose you. Again, during that draft night, the Knicks made 3 separate moves to free up this money.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
But honestly, like I remember we all went. Ali
you guys
was
made the finals. Excuse me. The finals. Excuse me.
Yeah, the finals this year. Yeah, I mean, but I remember
it worked out great for both parties.
Yeah, I mean,
it worked out great.
But I literally remember we were after one of the games in Utah. The bunch of us was walking back. Ali was there, and we were talking and everything. I thought, okay, we're gonna figure this out, and we'll make all this happen. And so to me, that's that's kind of where I don't know. I thought it would work out. I honestly thought it would work out. I really did. But it didn't, and that's okay. All's well that ends well. I'm happy for you, the king of New York, and I'm happy for us. It is what it is. That's the NBA.
That's cap. That's cap. He's not happy for them because, see, Cuban was trying to find a wingman for Luka. The KP experience did not work out. That was strike one. And he came from the Knicks. His health was not what Cuban thought it was. So, in a way, he felt like he got finessed by the Knicks right there. And then strike two was when he actually drafted a nice wingman to put alongside Luka, and he lost him to the Knicks.
Yeah, the only thing that I didn't like about the whole situation was when Mark said, when the parents got involved, that's when things got messy.
Exactly. Cuban was mad about it from the jump. Why would his parents not get involved? That's his family, man, of course. But at the end of the day, I'm going to add another strike with Cuban against the Knicks is when Julius Randle, Worldwide West, Allen Houston, and a couple of Knicks front office people showed up in Dallas when they were in that playoff series against the Utah Jazz. That rubbed Cuban the wrong way. But again, a few months later after this interview, it was found out that the Mavericks filed tampering charges against the Knicks. Dallas did not hide their frustrations about Brunson getting away. It was well known. It's all over the documentation. Matter of fact, I'll put the link in the description below. But Cuban is no stranger to the cap circumvention because the situation with him and Steve Ballmer has happened before with DeAndre Jordan, where he made the agreement to go to the Mavericks in free agency, but then reneged, had hooked them up with a car company to get a sponsorship. But pay attention right here, as Mark Cuban has always been nonchalant when addressing the cap circumvention that was done against him with Steve Ballmer.
Now, the sports fans among us, and I know there's a bunch here, know that you had kind of a tough night last night. With,
So this week on Shark Tank.
Without rehashing all the details of the DeAndre Jordan commitment.
Oh, you had to say his name, okay.
From a leadership standpoint, when you have a setback, when you have a tough day, what do you say to your people? What do you say to the fans?
The conversations we've had today, that it's over. There's nothing you can do about it. You think for a second, is there anything I can change? You think for another second, what have I learned so I can do it differently next time? And then you move forward and say, what are our options? I'm a big believer you have to re-earn your business every single day.
Now, the NBA did their own investigation into that situation. There was nothing necessarily foul by the Dallas Mavericks. And Cuban, even today with the cap circumvention with Kawhi Leonard, has gone out of his way to defend Steve Ballmer. The energy has been quite different with the Clippers owner, who really has enough money to buy half of the NBA teams in the league. But just like a cockroach, a dirty Mac is never dead. As Cuban finds the opportunity to tie the Knicks and the Brunson situation into the whole Kawhi cap circumvention fiasco.
Mavericks circumvent the salary cap with Dirk Nowitzki in 2014.
No.
Very good. Do you think the Knicks may have circumvented the cap in taking Jalen Brunson from your Mavericks?
I don't know.
A different answer.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I just think there was a lot of play there.
Yeah. Do you think the Knicks at the end here should be worried about an upcoming episode of Mark Cuban Finds Out?
That's behind me. More power to JB, more power to everything. Was I happy that they only got dinged for a second-round pick? No. No, it should have been.
I thought it was no fucking hard feelings, you fucking dirty Mac. Oh my God. Unbelievable.
No, it should have been far worse, but is what it is.
And now, once again, look at the difference in his response when they mention Steve Ballmer. It's almost like he dick rides Ballmer because, it's really because of his wealth level. He's scared of him in a way.
Do you remain, Mark Cuban, at the end here, Team Ballmer?
Yes.
We get it, Cuban. He's good for business. We even see Adam Silver. He's scared of Ballmer. The way he's been responding to some of these initial questions about their cap circumvention, he makes it seem like the burden of proof is overwhelming and it's really on the NBA. It is what it is. These guys are all competitors, the NBA owners. Even though they do work together, there are definitely some rifts. But when it comes to Steve Ballmer, because his pockets are so deep and he's been good for NBA business, a lot of these guys like Mark Cuban, they stay quiet when it comes to him. But they go all out when it comes to James Dolan, fucking filing tampering charges. Once again, Dirty Max, there's never enough raid for these fucking roaches.